So good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the joint meeting with the Calvert County Board of Commissioners and the Calvert County Planning Commission. My name is Buddy Hance. I'm president of the Calvert County Commissioners. To my right, I have Vice President Commissioner Mike Hart. To his right, Commissioner Catherine Grasso. To my left, Commissioner Tyler Ireland. And to his left, Commissioner Mark Cox. At this time, we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So if I could have a motion to approve and adopt the agenda as submitted.
Mr. President, I move that we approve and adopt the agenda submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and second that we approve and adopt the agenda as submitted. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Planning Commission Chair Maria Bueller.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Bueller, and I am joined this evening by Vice Chair Kernan virtually, Commissioner Gadway, Commissioner Freeland, Commissioner Toohey, Commissioner Dr. Holler, and Commissioner Williams. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Toohey, seconded by Commissioner Gadway. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. First up tonight, we have Rachel, are you presenting the first one? Text Amendment 23-02, amendments to the Calvert County zoning ordinance to allow automobile filling stations in the Lusby Town Center.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I need to recuse myself on this issue, being that I rent property that's adjacent to that. That on advice from council. All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. Rachel O'Shea, Zoning Planner with Department of Planning and Zoning. Purpose of this first item on the agenda for joint public hearing is to review and discuss the proposed text amendment 23-02 to allow for automobile filling stations to be conditionally permitted use within the Village Commercial Subdistrict of the Lusby Town Center, to receive and review public comment, and to take action on the proposed text amendment. Background. Text amendment application was received in April of 2023 from Mr. Kevin Eldon-esque on behalf of his client, Weiss Markets, Inc. The request was to allow for automobile filling stations within the Village Commercial Subdistrict of the Lusby Town Center. Currently, a conditionally permitted use within the Neighborhood Commercial and the Village Edge subdistricts, but not the Village Commercial. This is a map showing the subject property circled in red, the Weiss Market. On the other side of the street of H.G. Truman Road is the Giant Food Shopping Center and the Giant Automobile Filling Station, and to the north is the Patuxent and Appeal Elementary Schools and the post office. And this is a map showing the Lusby Town Center and the subdistricts of the town center. You'll see the Village Commercial kind of in the center, with wrapped around with the Neighborhood Commercial with the Village Edge to the south. This slide shows the existing Lusby Town Center use chart for vehicle and related services. And then this is the existing conditions, which is not being proposed as part of this text amendment. It's just for background, since for the other two districts, it's a conditionally permitted use, which is what the proposal is, to change it to a conditionally permitted use. And then this shows the text amendment change. So in the center of your screen, under the Village Commercial heading, you'll see a C for uses number 1 and 2, automobile filling station, and automobile filling station with convenience store and or eating establishment. Agency comments received include Economic Development Advisory Commission, the EDAC, which were in support, And then from Planning and Zoning, Long Range Planning wanted to bring focus to the Lusby Master Plan, Exhibit 4-1 on page 19. Neighborhood commercial is to promote development of convenience commercial uses that serve nearby population centers and highway traffic. And the village commercial subdistrict is to promote the intense use of land for commercial development and traditional patterns of town development. Next steps include discussion and/or questions, followed by public comment, and then the Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners would close the record and take action on the proposed text amendment. So if there's no questions, I will see if we have any speakers. Thank you. First on our list, we have Kevin Eldon.
Good evening. Thank you, Rachel, for the presentation. Myself and Jack O'Hara from Weiss Markets are here just to answer any questions. Rachel did a good job of covering the application. We were here before, so hopefully all questions have been answered, but if not, we're here and just available.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jack O'Hara.
Good evening, it's Jack O'Hara with Wise Markets. I'm here in support of a request for this text amendment. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And then next up, we have James McQueen.
James McQueen, I live in Lusby. So could you pull that map back up? I got a couple of questions of why you left 2 gas stations off that map. So I know where Wise Market is, and at the corner, a little bit further down, there is a fast stop. Across the street from that is another gas station. So we've got 3 gas stations within a block of each other, and you want to add another one right there in that section? Is that what this is about? Because it doesn't make sense. I don't see any lines at gas stations. Plus there's another one that's less than a quarter mile down the street. And I'm just sort of confused why we need another gas station, especially since in the green area next to that area is where the proposed apartment buildings are going. So once again, why are we adding a gas station and going to be adding more? I understand the development in areas for commercial, but we got a building across the street that nobody's buying. We've got a bank that's empty that's nobody buying. There ain't nothing going on there other than the future apartment building. So why do we need to have 4 gas stations basically within eye view? Just a question.
That concludes the list of speakers.
Thank you.
Oh, John, do we have any online speakers?
Mr. Cormier, you have your hand raised. I'm hearing the delay in the back room.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joe Cormier, and I'm looking at this proposal, and I'm reminded of when we talked about fuel cards last year, and we talked about how there were upwards of 100 gas stations in this county already. And just this week, we had the state transportation guys come in to talk about the Thomas Johnson Bridge that has upwards of 30,000 people a day or a year, whatever. I don't think we need more gas stations to, you know, create more impermeable surfaces to run off into our bay, when there's already plenty of gas stations in this county. We need to be investing in electric fleets. They talked about how fuel vehicles are more efficient, and we're getting more electric vehicles on the road. We need to invest in electric charging stations, not more gas stations. I have nothing against Weiss. I have nothing against, putting gas stations in front of grocery stores, but our county is already saturated with that type of deal. And we don't need another gas station, car wash, convenience store. We need to keep our county green. Thank you so much.
And that was the only speaker with their hand raised on Zoom.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Madam Chair, I do have a question, slight disagreement with our friend here. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
James McQueen.
Mr. McQueen, I think there's 5 gas stations
There is
within a
one
stone's
about-
throw.
Yeah, there's another one that's a quarter-mile up the road past the post office. It's a shell.
Right.
That would be 4, and the other one would be, the new one would be 5.
I think the new one would be 6, wouldn't it? Don't we have Fast Stop, but down from Fast Stop is the, what's that?
Back room, the old back room.
Oh.
Yeah, the old back room, CJ's.
The commissioner's giving me the bar behind it instead of the gas
Right.
station,
Can't think of the name.
knowing that that's the way to communicate with
Navy
me.
Station.
I always forget about that little, that's Mississippi, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this would be number 6, and like yourself, I've lived there for 40 years. I've never once waited for gas, never seen a line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Planning Commission member Kieran has his hand raised.
Okay.
Thank you. The previous speaker asked a question, why do we need another gas station? Is there someone from the Weiss company that can answer that question, please?
And I'm sorry, the question was, why should there be another gas station?
I think so, yes.
Okay. As a supermarket, we're a supermarket company. We sell groceries, we sell, in this particular location, we have a pharmacy, we have a deli. Fuel is another department in our supermarket. And we are looking to bolster our performance there, and to be very honest, we want to sell gas and sell more groceries, and we find that with that offering, we do sell more groceries, and we have a much better chance of staying in the community. Grocery stores and gas stations are very common. We own and operate approximately 197 stores. Of those, 60 have gas stations. We have another 5 to 8 that are on the books right now, and we'll continue to add them as we can. If you look around, most grocery stores in this area have a gasoline offering. You got a Safeway right out here. The Giant across the street from us in Lusby has fuel. So it's really not an uncommon offering at a supermarket. So that's what we're looking to do, is we're looking to get the best offering we can. And there are other fuel stations, we understand that, and it's just an offering that we, just as there are other grocery stores. Are there too many grocery stores in the town? I don't know. Are there too many convenience stores? Perhaps, but we're in business there, and we're trying to bolster that.
And sir, when you entered into a lease or started that business in that shopping center, was automobile filling stations permitted at that point in time in that location?
We acquired this location in 2016 in connection with the acquisition of approximately 38 other Food Lion stores. When the store was built, I'm not certain that it was, I do not know the answer to that. When we acquired the lease, it did not have, you obviously were here for the text amendment, so we couldn't put gas in at that time. Doesn't mean that we don't want to. And the deciding fact, when we looked at those stores, did we look to see if we could gas in? Not necessarily, but we are now filling in where we can. We're trying to put one in Callaway right now down here, and in other locations.
Understood. And The county seat, Prince Frederick, I believe, has a total, I was trying to do the quick math, I believe 4 filling stations in Prince Frederick as a county seat, in an area that's much farther spread out than the area that you're at down there. With, as other people have alluded to, with being able to throw a stone between 4 or 5 different stations, you don't see any additional problems or too much supply for not enough demand?
Our evaluation of this occasion, we do not believe that's a problem.
Do you find that having a fueling facility at the grocery store a convenience for your patrons?
It is a convenience for our patrons, and it's an offering. We have a fuel rewards program where the more groceries you buy, the more discount you can get on gas. Right now, it's 10 cents. You buy $100 worth of groceries, you can earn 10 cents off a gallon of gas. So that's an ongoing program we have, and that's it is a marketing tool, and we hopefully will sell more groceries as we sell more gas.
Do you plan to put in how many electric stations?
Electric charging?
Stations?
We are looking at that. We have not planned that. Typically, we own about half our sites. This particular site we lease. We're in the shopping centers that we own. We are looking at a plan to put charging stations in, and even where we lease, we are looking at that. Usually landlords, most are looking at that, and most of those are put in line to charging station where someone is going in to shop, maybe will be there for a half hour, 40 minutes, and actually can get an effective charge. Whereas if you pull into a filling station, if you will, the gas, you'd have to sit there for a half an hour. Now, we are looking at that, and I imagine at some point in time we will be having electric charging stations in our fuel facilities.
Any chance to know how many electric charging stations there are at all the other locations in there, like the other grocery store and whatnot that are down there?
I do not.
I don't know that there's any charging stations down there.
Giant, definitely.
There is. There's 2 giant, okay. Because that would be a great,
I would think that would.
you touched on it there, it would be a great idea to get the customers to come in and spend that extra 30 minutes to an hour to have an electric charging station while they're shopping, instead of spending 3 minutes getting fuel.
And to your point, we are looking into electric charging stations. However, right now, there are many more vehicles out there that use gasoline than are looking to be charged. So it is a evolving business, if you will, and we are looking at that. But it's not. I don't see it in lieu of fuel stations.
Set yourselves apart.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, several years ago, we did have a additional service station in Lusby back many years ago. There were problems with that tank eventually after it went out of business, and that property sat there vacant for 2 or 3 decades, if memory serves me correct. Do you have plans for what happens if we don't need a 5th gas station and those tanks sit unused under the earth?
Well, first of all of our tanks that we install are double walled. They meet all federal, state, local standards, whatever there are. We have the feeder system, constant monitoring of the tanks and distribution for leaks. We would own the tanks, and whatever had to be done with them would be done with them. If they leaked, which is very unlikely, we would be responsible for the cleanup, and if they needed to be removed, we would be responsible for removing them. Just like any of these other gas stations that are out there, they have the similar obligations, if you will.
And do your obligations stay even though you're a renter?
Yes, we by contract it'll be a contractual agreement, and if we sold it, the successor would have responsibility for it.
Thank you.
One other question, please.
Yes, sir.
How long is the lease for there at Weiss Markets have for that property?
We have significant, I don't have the exact date, we have a good bit of lease term, significant amount of lease term remaining. And we would not make an investment if we did not have a significant amount of lease term in order to amortize the asset, if you will. Okay, we would be putting this type of investment in to walk away, and if we didn't have term, we would not do it. Just if we were to remodel a store, we wouldn't do it unless we had enough lease term to justify or rationalize the investment.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, this, in my opinion, would make the village commercial too similar to the neighborhood commercial areas. And with that, I'd like to make a motion that we do not recommend the text amendment changes because it is found not to be consistent with the master plan.
Close the record.
And-
Close the record.
Or to close the record. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gadway. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tui. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna do a roll call vote for this one. Vice Chair Kernan?
Aye.
Commissioner Gadway?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeland?
Nay.
Commissioner Tui?
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Holler?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
That is a tie vote. I also am going to vote no.
Questions or?
No, I think you're okay. So the motion
Motion failed.
failed.
Mhm.
Do we have another motion? Or do we need?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to support the text amendment.
Can close the record.
Close the record.
Okay, I have a motion to support the text amendment and close the record by Commissioner Freeland. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holler. Vice Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Okay. Can we amend
Yes.
your motion?
Yes. So my motion is to close the record and forward the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners of supporting the change
And finding it consistent?
and finding it consistent. Yes.
Okay, and does your second still stand, Dr. Holler?
It does.
Okay. All right, Vice Chair Kernan.
Aye.
Commissioner Gadway.
Nay.
Commissioner Freeland.
Aye.
Commissioner Tui.
Nay.
Commissioner Holler.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
3, 4. So motion carries.
Thank you. So, my fellow commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Do you have any questions?
Have none.
You've heard the recommendation of the planning commission. Is there an action you'd like to take?
I move that we accept the recommendation of the planning commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact an ordinance adopting text amendment 23-02 to be effective and set forth in the ordinance.
Second.
A motion, a second, that we accept the recommendation of the planning commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact the ordinance adopting text amendment number 23-02 to be effective as set forth in the ordinance. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay, and let Commissioner Hart know, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Next is to review and to discuss the proposed text amendment 23-04 to expand accessory uses permitted at public recreation areas, to receive and consider public comment, and to take action on the proposed text amendment. Background. Staff received a request from the Department of Parks and Recreation to expand accessory uses permitted at public recreation areas. Parks and Recreation is interested in building an indoor recreational facility to serve the growing need for pickleball courts. The indoor facility would also be used for other indoor recreational sport activities at the public parks. The zoning ordinance currently restricts indoor recreational facilities at public recreational areas. This slide shows the existing public recreational area use. And then this is the proposed text amendment. We are adding language to the condition number 2 so that it reads, in all other districts, only buildings that are associated with or accessory to the primary use, such as indoor recreational facilities, community centers, restrooms, dressing rooms, equipment storage, maintenance buildings, open air pavilions, accessory offices, and meeting space, etc., shall be permitted. Agency comments received include Economic Development Advisory Commission in support with consideration to utilizing existing structures prior to development of new facilities, as well as the Department of Recreation, who is in support. Next steps include discussion and or questions, public comment, and then Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners to close the record and take action on the proposed amendment. If there are no questions, I will move to public comment and see if we have any speakers. We have no speakers signed up. John, do we have any online?
Mr. Cormier, your hand is raised. You can use the unmute function to unmute yourself.
Good evening again, Commissioners. I just wanted to know if this text amendment is going to cause any delays in the building of the Harry Elizabeth Brown Center, which would also be an indoor athletic facility for the community. But I'm open to any indoor facility that would be conducive to indoor track and field. Right now, there's nowhere in the county for our high school students to practice. And for them to do any of the state meets, they have to go up to PGSLC, which I'm told is on its last legs and is the site of last resort, or they're headed to Virginia Beach or Liberty University for invitational. So I hope whatever the county chooses to do, that they build an indoor facility that has a track and a throwing and jumping facility that could be the destination in Southern Maryland for indoor high school track and field sports. Thank you so much.
That is the only virtual speaker.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Or I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we close the record, make the recommendation to approve to the county commissioners.
Second.
And find it consistent with the master plan. Sorry, I was taking a breath.
I'm going too fast. Second.
A motion by Commissioner Gadway, seconded by Commissioner Tui. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So my fellow commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Have any questions?
I have none.
None.
Is there an action you'd like to take? You've heard the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact the ordinance adopting text amendment 23-04 to be effective as set forth in the ordinance.
Second. I have a motion and a second that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact the ordinance adopting text amendment 23-04 to be effective as set forth in the ordinance. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll move on to the next agenda item. To review and to discuss text amendments 23-05 to allow multifamily dwellings within the D1 subdistrict of the Solomons Town Center, and 23-06 to increase the allowable density from 7 to 14 units per acre with the use of transferable development rights, TDRs. Review and consider public comment and take action on the proposed text amendments. Background. Staff received a request from Solomon's Island SH1 LLC on behalf of Solomon's Joint Venture LLC for 2 text amendment requests. 1, to conditionally permit multifamily residential units within the D1 subdistricts of the Solomon's Town Center, and 2, to increase the base density from 7 units per acre to 14 units per acre with use of TDRs. Information provided by the applicant for justification of the proposal includes redevelopment of age and outdated asset, creates jobs to aid economic development, and fulfills a need in the Solomons community for assisted living and memory care facilities. This would benefit the community by expanding allowable uses in town center and maintaining needed conference space within the county, as well as providing additional tax revenue. This slide shows a map of the subdistricts, most of the subdistricts of the Solomons Town Center. And then this gives you a detailed picture of the area we're talking about. The D1 area is shaded in a light purple from Lore Road up to about where Boomerangs is, and with D2, D3, D4, and D5 to the north of it. Within the Solomons Town Center zoning ordinance, Section 2-7 gives an explanation of planning areas and the zoning sub-areas. The Solomons Town Center is divided into 6 planning areas, each of which is further divided into zoning sub-areas. These sub-areas are established to regulate appropriate locations for different types of land uses within the town center. The appropriate location for a particular land use is determined by the stated objectives of the Solomons Master Plan, as well as environmental suitability, location of the public facilities and services, and existing land uses within the vicinity. The planning area D includes the land north of Lore Road from the Patuxent Plaza Shopping Center along the east side of the Route 24 north to the town center boundary. It is bounded on the east side by the Back Creek and St. John Creek. The sub-area zoning policies for the planning area D include, for D1 and D4, the sub-area is designated for commercial use because of its convenient transportation access and because of its relatively isolated from residential uses and waterfront areas. D2 and D3, these areas are designated for primarily residential use with small-scale commercial and wet boat storage. D5, this area is designated for residential, commercial, and marine-related industrial use. Master plans for large, underdeveloped land holdings are encouraged. This slide shows the existing Solomons Town Center table of land uses for residential uses. And then this next slide shows the proposed text amendment. If you look in the center at the bottom of the table for our attached dwelling uses, you see a list of Cs, adding that as a conditionally permitted use in the D1 subdistrict. This slide shows the Solomons Town Center table of land uses residential conditions. This is just for information. This is not proposing to change with the text amendment. This is the next text amendment, 23-06, for the density increase. This is the table proposal in the Calvert County zoning ordinance. You'll see in red for the D1, D2, and D3 sub-areas, we would be increasing it with use of TDRs from the 7 to the 14 units per acre. And then this is the change required in the Solomon's Town Center zoning ordinance. We'll be adding the language to section 5-1.08, residential density, minimum lot size and lot width requirements in the Solomon's Town Center. A, maximum density within item number 2. In the D sub area, the base density may be increased to a maximum of 14 units per acre with the application of TDRs. Agency comments received include the Department of Economic Development, which was in support, Calvert County Chamber of Commerce, which is in support, and the Calvert Economic Development Authority, EDA, was opposed. Within their letter, the EDA does emphasize a concern regarding the property in question sitting idle and underutilized but concerned the text amendment could negatively impact the future growth of the surrounding areas. The EDA would like the amendments to include more comprehensive planning and development provisions that align with the county's long-term vision and best interests. Recommendation and next steps, discussion and or questions, followed by public comment. Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners would close the record and take action on the proposed text amendments. So if there's no questions, I'll go ahead and start with our speakers. First up to speak is Lee Baines.
My name is Lee Baines. I'm the general manager of the current Solomon's Inn, formerly the Holiday Inn at Solomon's. I've been there for 20 years, and I'm here to speak on the very human toll this project has. Our almost 100 employees, when we closed down, were offered a very generous path forward by the new owners. Once the project was up and running again, we all got to maintain our positions, maintain our seniority, and move forward. Now that almost 100 people have been displaced for 13 months, and we don't have any idea when we're gonna have this building open again. That's almost 100 Calvert and St. Mary's families that have been affected. And honestly, they're my second family. I want them back to work. These are the same people that not just promoted the hotel, we promoted the county. For every dollar somebody spent at our hotel, they spent $7 in the county. They filled the restaurants, the bars, the museums, the beaches, because we sent them there. We promoted the county. We brought the Mrs. World pageant to the county. We've done a lot of good things for the county. We just want a chance to do it again. Thank you.
Next speaker is John Dixon.
Good evening. My name is John Dixon. I'm president of Reliable Real Estate Services, representing the ownership group of the Solomon's Inn property. The text amendment under consideration is the result of our request, and I wanted to provide an outline of our proposed redevelopment program to help you gain an understanding of the purpose for the text amendment request. The market for a 326-room hotel diminished with the construction of numerous hotels in St. Mary's County and within Calvert County, which changed the economics of the viability of the Holiday Inn, which led to it being put on the market and looking for a redevelopment partner. So we stepped in and we have come up with a program where we intend to reopen a 170-room hotel that will have a national flag and managed by a national operator. We will renovate a portion of the existing conference center so that it'll be capable of hosting over 250 guests. We're gonna repurpose and redevelop, reconstruct the old Isaac's restaurant to become a destination restaurant to serve not just the hotel, but the entire Solomon's community, and to help bring people to the area for a destination dining experience on the water. 140 active adult market rate apartments. That's the main purpose of the text amendment, is that multifamily housing is not currently allowed, And this, we want it to be targeted to 55 and over, so that it is a high-end place for people to live that don't want to own a home, but might want to keep their boat at the marina and have a place to stay on weekends during the summer and to get away any time of the year. We're a refurbishment of the existing pool and courtyard areas, retention refurbishment of the seasonal outdoor bar and patio, retention and renovation of the 77-slip marina, and a new 80 plus or minus bed assisted living memory care facility. The existing hotel configuration includes 326 hotel rooms, which is much larger than the market can support. Historical occupancy rates and our market study show that a hotel of 150 to 175 rooms is financially viable at this location. However, the economics of the renovation of the amenities, conference center, and restaurant, as well as amortizing the underlying value of the land, requires more development density, specifically residents who will utilize the amenities and the restaurant that are going to be refurbished on the property. After commissioning a market study, it was determined that an active adult multifamily rental community targeted to higher wealth residents would be successful due to the proximity of the water, on-site marina, and active lifestyle in Solomon's Island. They suggested housing density should be about 150 units. Similarly, our senior care market study showed that the biggest need in the senior care market in Southern Maryland is for assisted living and memory care. Thus, a new 80-bed facility constructed as a standalone building in the southwestern portion of the existing parking lot would be successful. To address the concerns about other properties within the Solomon's Town Center utilizing this text amendment to develop multifamily projects, as I have heard a concern from several folks who have considered this, we suggest perhaps including several conditions. One, that it must include the redevelopment of an existing developed property, that it have a minimum parcel size of 10 acres, that it must be active adult, so that it's only 55 and over and there are no children adding to the school rolls, and it must be served by public water and sewer. Thank you very much for considering our text amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Lee Souza.
Commissioners, I am Leonard Souza, and I'm speaking on behalf of the concerned residents of Solomons. Thank you for this opportunity to address the proposed rezoning of Solomons zoning subdistrict D. At a recent meeting, I thanked BOCC commissioners for your efforts to protect the physical environment of the county. I am repeating those thanks, and I'm also asking you to protect the cultural environment of Solomons. At your August 1st meeting, BOCC commissioners expressed concerns about the physical and aesthetic problems that could result from the requested zoning changes. President Hance opposed upzoning several times and said that they would create unwelcome precedents. Commissioner Hart expressed concern about apartments and the impact on infrastructure from increased population. Commissioners Grasso and Todd opposed the authorization of high-density multifamily developments. From the Planning Commission's perspective, Commissioner Gadway asked whether anyone had asked planning to provide another way to allow development without the expansive amendments. They said that they had not been asked to make the amendments less far-reaching. Our concerns go beyond the aesthetics. The Town Center Master Plan points out, and I'm quoting, this is the 2009 Solomon's Town Center Master Plan, preservation of the visual qualities and character of Solomon's Town Center will enhance the quality of life for residents, substantially enhance the value of the land in the area, enhance its marketability, and retain and enhance its character in order to continue attracting tourists, and tourism is the core of the Solomon's economy. We want to provide you concrete reasons why you were correct in opposing the rezonings. because we see serious problems with them. Number one, the 2009 Town Center Master Plan reported that density should not be as high here as in other town centers in the county because the property in question is in a critical area. Number two, the county has not received the impact study from the applicants that the Department of Planning recommended in its July 17th memo and its October 19th staff report to you. This study would identify the impact that density increases would have on county roads, water, sewer, and schools. Without such analysis, you could set a precedent for development that could require substantial new unanticipated expenditures in the county budget. Point number three, text amendment number 23-6 would increase density from 7 to 14 units per acre, not just in subdistrict D1, but also in D2 and D3. This would significantly expand areas allowing high density growth well beyond the former Holiday Inn property. If you were to approve the requested increase in densities, current or future property owners could decide to build high density multifamily developments allowed by the new zoning, the most intense residential use available. The county would face serious legal problems if it tried to prevent any development permitted in a new zoning, especially if the owners argued that it provided greater financial returns than the plans now before you. Point number four, over and above the unintended consequences of a high-density development being approved for subdistrict D, would be that this rezoning would create a precedent, as President Hance pointed out, for similar rezonings of other parts of Solomons. Such developments could irreversibly change the small-town character of our community. This would especially be the case if this precedent were applied to such locations as the beautiful farmland on the south side of Solomon's Island Road leading to the island. This potential harmful consequence alone should be enough to persuade you to deny the requested rezonings. Point number five, there are alternatives for this property, such as a library or a rec center that would enhance its tourist appeal and or the quality of life for residents. The county should explore alternatives that would not require broad zoning changes that could result in unintended consequences. Calvert farmers would not buy a pig in a poke, but would demand to see what they are getting before they bought it. You are being asked to buy this rezoning even though you don't know what kind of development you would get should you approve it. We are asking you to require county staff to assess the full impact of potential high-density projects on public facilities and on the character of Solomon's before you approve the requested rezonings, regardless of what the developers now say they plan to build. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, John Roberts.
Good evening. My name is John Roberts. I've been a resident of Solomon's for 23 years. That makes me a new boy. Okay? I want to express my serious concern about the proposed upzoning in the residential areas from 7 to 14 units per acre. Just drive through subzones 2 and 3 and enjoy the residential community that's there. Single-family homes on small to medium-sized lots. That's going to disappear. As I think as Commissioner Hart mentioned, it's a gateway to apartments. What's going to happen is very clear, and it's happened in many other places in the country. When you double, or in a sense, the value of the land under residential property, what you do is create a financial incentive for investors, developers, to buy those single-family homes in groups of 2 or 3 maybe, or just 1 or 2, tear them down and build multi-resident apartments. It's the money just screams out for that kind of an investment. And once it happens in one place in that in our community, it's going to snowball, because nobody then who still has their single-family home in that community wants to be the next one or the last one standing. So please keep in mind that dramatic impact and what will
particularly the D2 and 3D area subzone, but also consider how that sets a precedent for other undeveloped or partially developed portions of the Solomons Town Center that would then could be readily argued to be consistent with the changes in D2 and D3, and you're basically creating a residential community
Please.
that will serve commuters to Pax River or wherever, and the total nature of the community will have changed. And keep in mind the impact on social services and on traffic, on sewer and water. So thank you very much for seriously looking at what I think is a change that none of us wants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, we are timing this based on Resolution 51-20 and 06-89. So that beep means your time is up.
Next speaker, Josh Johnson.
Hello, Josh Johnson with Concerned Citizens of Calvert County. There was public outcry that's lasted for like the last 10 years, I've been here. That ended with a standing room only community of taxpayers that said no last fall. It was such a public outcry. There was about 30 speakers, I believe, I'm going off memory. There was only 2 for any multifamily dwellings. And ironically, both of those are builders. So about 84% of the constituents that showed up that night said no. At that point, the commissioners took a bold move and they said no as well. At this point, it's a little startling that we're here tonight. And I think where we need to know is how we got here. How we're talking about a PUD that's illegal by our own codes, by our own standards. The zoning ordinance that was adopted back in 2018 seems to be something that's being used right now. That zoning ordinance, when it was adopted inside of the comprehensive plan. And so there was no changes then, and so that's the standing that's involved. That really comes from the state. So who is trying to, in a backward session, trying to change that zoning ordinance? It's very concerning because I know where the commissioner stood, they voted on it, and I know where the taxpayers stand, we know that as well. So how are we trying to do a backdoor deal to change the zoning ordinances? That's concerning. It's important to note the verbiage that was just used tonight. We're targeting 55 plus. I believe those would probably be the same words that were used in Chesapeake Beach at the Kellum Park Townhouse Apartments. They are now Section 8. They're now Section 8, so that we know and we're clear as to what that actually looks like. Infrastructure. The numbers are mind-blowing. We're already at capacity of schools, infrastructure, septic, sewers. We are. And so in that, there's billions of dollars. Some have said trillions. There's some research that's being done. And so who's going to pay for that? Is that the builder? I don't believe so. That's not what's happened in the past. It's going to be the taxpayers. That's who's going to pay. So those are the things that aren't talked about, and we should be talking about those things. I think what we're getting is some bad advice, some bad legal advice. We don't have standing for what's presented right now. And I think we need to look at our legal advice to assure the fact that it's the values of this community. That's what we want, the values that we stand for. I don't care about what's happening in St. Mary's. We don't care about what's happening in PG County. What we do care about is what the constituents of this community want, and that's 84% saying no to this. And I further move that you make an amendment so that we don't have to revisit this every 9 months. We have to listen to the taxpayers and assure the fact that their voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is James McQueen.
A lot has been said tonight, and I agree with the Solomon's group and what's been talked about the area. And I just want to talk about, I live in Lusby. So where do I go a lot? I go to Solomon's. What do I go to? I don't go to Solomon's in the summer. I can't afford to go to Solomon's on the weekends. There's no parking. It's packed. The sidewalks are packed. I walk 4 to 5 miles a day down in Solomon's when there's nobody there. But if you add this much more people coming in and you start that flow, it won't stop. And that's been such a beautiful area. You got so much water there. Where's all this stuff gonna end up landing? And if it goes up to the sewage station, that's sitting right where critical creeks are, up in Lusby. Once again, the entire Lusby area that I'm in is all on septic. Will that ever change? Doubt it. That's okay. We can live with it. But it's a beautiful area, and we're talking about ruining it. It's a gem of this county, and we know that that one group has taken the agriculture sign off of the Glasscock area. Just think about all the apartments that would look like when you're crossing the bridge. What would that do to the streets right there and the roads trying to get in and out? It just doesn't make sense of us ruining our county over one particular project, because what's going to happen, you're making a precedence. And once that's done, it will continue down there. And it will start going straight up. It'll go back towards Asbury, it'll go north of there, there's all that land's there, but it's all on critical areas. But you're gonna open the door. And that's what we're afraid of. We want to keep the areas that we use and go to and enjoy the way they are now and not ruin them with urban development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, David Burry.
My name is David Bury, speaking for myself. I was glad to see Planning and Zoning in their presentation emphasize some of the text that is in the Solomons master plan. But in my view, the most significant sentence in the current Solomons master plan reads as follows: maximum residential density limits should not be as high as other major town centers, since Solomons is in the critical area. 2306 directly violates that. So were you to approve that, I think you would be taking an action that is inconsistent with the Solomons master plan and therefore with the county comprehensive plan. And if you throw out 2306, then 2305 looks an awful lot like illegal spot zoning. So I think 2305 has to go as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
That concludes our list of speakers. John, anybody online?
Cormier, if you would unmute yourself, please. Please identify if you're speaking on behalf of the group.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I'll be speaking on behalf of myself. I'm just concerned by some of the things developers talked about this evening, having a place for people with boats to be summer flies and come and stay. We don't need more Airbnbs in that area. We need permanent housing for our older folks who aren't in that high price range. We need to support our Calvert County aging population. And you can say it's for 55 plus, but as we saw during the pandemic, a lot of 55 plus grandparents were taking care of their grandchildren or great-grandchildren while their parents had to work and the schools were closed. So they can't guarantee that that's going to be, quote, just active adults and no children. As we keep moving forward, we talk about the traffic in the Solomons area constantly, and we talk about the deterioration of that bridge to St. Mary's. The people who are going to use those apartments in the Solomons area are going to travel across that bridge to St. Mary's for work or for pleasure, because there's only so many things to do in our delightful county. I don't think that increasing the TDR zoning from 7 to 14 is a wise choice in that area. And I'm a little confused as to why when we talk about TDRs and pricing changes, some of the commissioners recuse themselves, but now when we're talking about density changing in TDRs, the commissioners aren't recusing themselves from that conversation because it's increasing not the price of the TDR, but the potential profit in selling a TDR. And I know you've all pinky promised not to sell your TDRs anytime soon, but it's still an issue for optics. Thank you so much.
That's the only speaker.
Commissioners?
Yes, please. How many acres is that property?
It's 11 acres.
11? Okay. Just doing the quick math, out of what was described to us tonight, that's 390 units would be what would be going in there. Is 140 units to be sold, 170 units for hotel rooms, and an additional 80 for assisted living. Those are the numbers you described to us, and so I'm curious, assisted living is already approved for that area. So you could literally do a hotel on one side of 170, 180 rooms you said would be beneficial, plus assisted living for the remainder portion to be perfectly within current zoning. But yet, if we change this, worst case scenario, hypothetically, property is decided to be sold at that point, the entire property could be raised, and then 4-story high-rise units could be built at 14 dwelling units per acre throughout all of the D area, including that 11 acres. So I'm trying to figure out how we ended up going from 320 plus rooms to now 390 rooms, or 390 units, which would be more bedrooms beyond that, and have it be considered same or similar use.
Well, it would not be a similar use, it's a mixed use. It was three. It's not the same use, it's a mixture of uses. And the 80 units that's assisted living, that's basically 80 beds within the assisted living and memory care facility. The apartments would be rented, not sold, and they would be annual leases for people that would live there. And then the hotel would be for, hotel guests, transient guests, overnight guests.
And under current federal guidelines, I believe that if it's a 55 and over community, that only applies to the head of household. Is that correct? Under current federal HUD guidelines?
You can't have kids living there. You can have
That's actually, respectfully, you can't do that. That's discrimination against familial status.
There are limits to what people get away with doing that. The head of house has to be over 55, and the spouse does not. You are correct in that. But people with families don't want to live in a 55 and over community. And people that live in a 55 and over community live there because they don't want the kids.
For the record, I just toured at this over on Kent Island a few weeks ago. We were at a conference, and they took us out to show us a 55 and over community, and it was very clear described to us under federal and state laws that the 55 and over is for head of household only, and any other family members or relatives can legally live with them in the property regardless of age, as long as the head of household is over 55, the head of household tax filing. And when we were there, there was significant people that were living there that we saw that were in their teens and 20s, and school buses were in and out of there while we were doing the tour.
And that was a single-family housing community?
That was actually, it was a mixed. There was commercial on the bottom of one floor. There was semi-attached throughout the rest of the development.
Because you're either talking about the one in Centerville or the one on Kent Island.
One on Kent Island, Slippery Hill.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. So
I'm just saying what I saw.
I can't speak to what others have done. These are going to be apartments. These are going to be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. It's not like you're going to have, all these bedrooms for, the whole family to live in. I can't change what the federal guidelines are. All I can tell you is what our intention of the project is.
As of today's date.
Sure.
I'm just saying, if this were to be approved, in theory, it could be sold and raised in the areas like Old Nut Court and stuff like that, 14 dwelling units, and the high-rise developments could be put there.
Yeah, where you would get 100, and if it's 11 acres, which I'm told it is, I believe it is, it's 154 units.
That could be of any size. 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom.
Yeah, I do believe you also have restrictions on redevelopment within the critical area that would be restrictive, which is why I suggested the condition that you utilize be redevelopment of an existing structure, of an existing developed property.
Okay. But assisted living is already provided for in that area.
It is allowed,
Right.
correct.
Thank you.
Sir, I'd like to ask you a question. Can I?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you have any other questions? No?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question. Is there a
Oh, okay.
maximum amount of bodies that can live in an apartment based on your lease? Or,
No, I do not believe that there are limitations on it. Typically, it would be individuals and couples.
I believe under fair housing laws, you can't discriminate against familial status, which has to deal with size.
Legal advice.
That's a question. That's my
I
understanding.
thought you were giving legal advice.
I'm not. I'm saying that is my understanding.
Okay.
If council has an answer to that?
Currently, a ordinance cannot
The microphone, please. Come to the microphone, please.
Currently, our ordinance may not, or any ordinance may not dictate what is or is not familial status. So far, challenges to 4 more unrelated persons have been upheld.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we close the record, find these text amendments not concurrent or not in line with the master plan, and not recommend them to the county commissioners.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Gadway, seconded by Commissioner Freeland. Do I have any further discussion? I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Kernan?
Aye.
Commissioner Gadway?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeland?
Aye.
Commissioner Tui?
Nay.
Commissioner Holler?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
no.
That is a tie vote also. I'm gonna say no. I'll entertain another motion.
I would like to make a motion to close the record and forward to the county commissioners for text amendment case 23-05 and 23-06, to amend Calvert County zoning ordinance and Solomon's Town Center zoning ordinance to approve the proposed changes.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Williams, seconded by Commissioner Tui. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Kernan?
No.
That was a no.
No, no.
Commissioner Gadway?
No.
Commissioner Freeland?
No.
Commissioner Tui?
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Holler?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
And I also am gonna vote yes.
So Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Do you have any questions?
I do. And sorry for breaking protocol there. Sometimes my brain gets going faster than my mouth can stop it. You had made a comment that folks that go in 55 and older don't really want to be bothered with kids. Is that correct?
They want to live in an environment that is not where there are a lot of kids.
Don't hotels typically have kids come with families? You're gonna put them in the same parking lot, aren't you?
There is a shared parking facility. There are separate wings. The apartments will have amenities. The hotel will have amenities. They'll share the restaurant and bar. They'll be able to use the conference facility. They'll be able to use the marina.
Will they share the pool as well?
That, we haven't determined that yet.
Could you imagine you're 55 and older, you're retired, you want to relax, and people are on vacation? Them kids, I have 2 kids. I don't always want to sit next to them sometimes on vacation. Because you know what? It's time to cut it loose.
I hear you, and, I suppose that if we do decide that it will be shared, it is a big pool. It's a large pool.
So I kind of don't
There's a lot of
understand you,
areas.
because you said on one hand, 55 and older folks don't want to be bothering with them, but then yet you're going to put them right together.
If they don't want to be around kids, then they won't use the pool.
So if I'm 55 and older, then wouldn't I be a little deterred from using that area? Because there is a strong chance that going with, please stop me if I'm misspeaking with what you said, that I want to be an area that doesn't have kids. Well, I'm kind of subjecting myself to that, aren't I?
You would be, yes.
So that would be kind of deterrent for 55 and older.
Yes, it would.
So then what would the plans be if you had 150 units and you could only rent 60? Because I'm a businessman too. When things sit and there's loans calling, I got to fill it.
Not necessarily all the residents feel that way.
Of
not wanting to be, if share an amenity with families.
I'm just going with what you said.
I'm saying that there are segments of that population that don't want to be sharing amenities and living in an environment where there are children running all over the place.
Could that make it difficult to rent out those 150?
To those folks, yes, but the rest of the folks, no.
You think there's that much out there? You think there's that many Calvert County residents that are looking for a place?
I think it's more than just Calvert County residents, but
So,
yes.
so the problem that, and I'm speaking my 20%, we just had folks in from State Highway talking about that bridge is nowhere on the horizon. And we heard about, more fatalities this year and more on the road and traffic and everything. So with bringing this more traffic and everything else like that.
It's likely to be less traffic than what was there when it was 326 hotel rooms and a conference center twice the size of what we're proposing to do, and the events that were there.
How you figure?
There were a lot more vehicle trips from those uses than there would be for 170 hotel rooms and 140 apartments.
So you had, what, 300 hotel rooms before?
326.
326?
Plus a conference center that hosted events over 500 people.
But you'll host events as well.
Yeah, but not that size.
How big?
Roughly 250 is a max.
So if you had 303 rooms, is that what you said? Roughly 300 rooms or whatever it was?
It was 326.
326. So typically, when people go to a hotel room, a family, they take one car, don't they?
Typically, yes.
Well, if I got 150 apartments and 2 people are in it, don't they normally have a car each?
Not necessarily.
So you don't
And
think?
it's not necessarily going to be all couples.
But there's potential that 2 people could be in there. I know a lot of times when I look at a thing, I always figure 2 people in a resident thing, but there's that capability. That would be 300 cars just on the apartments itself.
If there are 2 per unit, then yes, there is that possibility.
So you'd have 300 cars potentially there, then plus all the cars that go to the hotel unit, plus the conference center. Seems to me you'd have more cars.
It's more transient when it's a hotel. So there's more vehicle trips in and out. When you're living in a unit, in an environment that's very walkable, which Solomon's is.
They ain't walking to the grocery store. I
Some
grew
will
up
go to
down
the
there. I
grocery
know
store.
every place to walk down there. If you can walk to that grocery store and carry them groceries, boy, I want to hire you at my store because you're strong. Okay.
So once a week they'll drive to the grocery store.
Okay.
So
what if they have a job?
Well,
See where I'm
certainly they
going? So
No,
I'm
no,
just trying to find some logic in
I
this.
understand, but I will tell you our traffic consultant said the traffic the traffic trips will decrease.
And I love those guys, because you know what? The mistakes I made my first 4 years, we used to have these traffic consultants come in, and I didn't understand. We would get D ratings, and they would rate it on a 24-hour period. So me being a newbie and not knowing my job the way I should have known it, I would say, well, okay, D, we pass it with D? And they're like, well, that's what's in the code. But they would take that area, and they would say, well, let's say it's 100 cars. They would divide it over 24 hours. But that wasn't the reality, because when you live in an area like this, it's commuter traffic. We're a bedroom community. We drive out of here to work. So that time that they're counting 2 and 3 in the morning was really kind of misleading. So no disrespect to traffic consultants, but I don't have a lot of faith in them.
I can tell you that every traffic study I've done for the last 20 years has included peak traffic volumes, and they look at it during the AM and PM peak, and that's when they test it.
We should have hired you then 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Because that's not the data that we used to
Well,
get.
I can tell you that's the data in every one that I've done.
So you have that data, that traffic study for us to see?
I have not done the traffic study. I've had our consultant look at the numbers based upon trip generation from the various uses.
Well, I won't keep beating this dog. I think you know where I'm at.
Questions?
Yeah, I have one for Rachel. So why did we add D2 and D3 to the amendment?
They're already conditionally permitted for the residential use, so keeping the D sub area together and consistent, it was included. But that, you know, to your all's decision and recommendation, that could be changed in the proposal.
Okay. And we do have sub-districts in Solomons that allow 20 per acre, correct?
Yes, that is the maximum one of the sub-districts has. It goes up to 20.
Okay.
Mr. Dixon, I have a question. I just want to clarify something I thought I heard you say in your testimony earlier. You said that a 326-room hotel just doesn't work anymore because of the number of hotel rooms in Lexington Park and in the area?
In St. Mary's County. So a lot of the demand generated from Pax River has been met by hotel rooms down in that market.
So to conclude from your analysis, we should not allow any more hotels in Solomons?
I can't speak for what other people will propose or what you would approve. All I know is that the demand was not there for the last several years for the operation of the Holiday Inn.
I just want to make sure that we don't make a mistake in the future and allow another hotel to come in and it fail, and then we're back at the table again when they're trying to redevelop. So I just think we need to consider moving forward if we're going to allow any more hotels in Solomons.
I can't make that decision for you. All I can tell you is what's best for this property.
Just want to clarify what you
In
said.
our opinion. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
So you've heard the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Is there an action?
Should have that right there. Mr. President, I make a motion that we reject the Planning Commission's recommendation and deny the text amendment 23-05, 23-06, and close the record.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we do not accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, that we do not adopt text amendment 2305 and 2306, and that we close the record. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
just to clarify, for the purposes of 2-5.01 of the zoning ordinance, I would ask if the motion could be amended. And it sounds like the commissioners are finding that these two applications are not supported by any evidence of change in the character of the neighborhood nor a mistake in the original zoning, and find that it's in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the general public to deny this text amendment.
Okay. Do you want me to read that statement in there, John? Good. Or just go with?
If you would accept that as an amendment to
I
your
do.
motion and ask for the second.
Second.
So I do have one thing I want to bring up.
Sure.
Everybody's seen this document, comprehensive plan. And have we all seen the executive summary and read that? So I just want to clarify before I vote, and the purpose, this is an official document of Calvert County, evaluating proposed projects or considering changes to legislation such as zoning ordinance. The values of this document: preserving the rural landscape, creating vibrant town centers are the two values of this document. First comprehensive plan was 1967. These two values work together and mutually sustain each other, supporting, encouraging, and directing the growth away from the rural areas, helps preserve the rural landscape and focuses development into the town centers. Similarly, supporting, encouraging, and directing growth towards the town center limits development within the rural areas and creates more activity and vibrant within the town centers. And this is a tough one because, you know, redevelopment, and we've heard out there, tax revenue, assisted living, creates jobs. But this is in our comprehensive plan of what we should do. Put it in the town centers, keep it from the rural places in Calvert County. So just throwing this out there so that everybody can read it and understand what's in the plan. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. What? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Chris Sperling, Historic Preservation Planner. This is in regards to the designation removal of the Kent Millard Heritage House Historic District. Background. Calvert County Code, Chapter 57, Historic Districts, specifically Section 57-8C and 57-9A, together with the Maryland Annotated Code Land Use Article, Section 8-101, and what follows, sets forth the criteria and procedures for the removal of designation for historic districts. Discussion. Ms. Harriet Millard, property owner, submitted a written petition and application to the Historic District Commission to remove the historic district designation from the Kent Millard Heritage House Historic District. The historic district is located at 12531 Olivet Road in Lusby, Maryland, is shown on the tax assessor's map 45 as parcel 91, and is zoned as a historic district overlay. The property was designated a Calvert County Historic District by Calvert County Board of County Commissioners by county resolution in 2018 under case number HD 2017-1. The HDC reviewed the application at the regular meeting on Wednesday, November 9, 2022. At the time, the HDC voted 6-0 to recommend the Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission that the request to remove the designation be denied. Subsequently, Ms. Millard commissioned a professional archaeological investigation. On June 14, 2023, the HDC reconsidered the application with the new information and voted to recommend the BOCC approve the application. The findings on which the the findings on which the HDC based both recommendations are attached along with other supporting documents. Additionally, since finalization of the agenda, Planning and Zoning received proposed amendments to the draft ordinance from Ms. Millard's counsel. Copies have been distributed to the Commissioners. Fiscal impact is none. Conclusion. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission review the HDC designation removal request, consider public comment, close the record, and take action. Available for any questions? Hearing no questions, we have a list of speakers, and at first I would like to start with Mr. Peter Goldsmith, who is the attorney for Ms. Millard.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners, Madam Chair, Planning Commissioners. My name is Peter Goldsmith. I am the attorney for the Millard family. The ordinance establishing the Kent Millard Heritage House Historic District provided two general grounds for establishing the district. One was the historic house that was built by the Millard's great-grandfather, and two was a suggestion that there was some archaeological potential on the site. Because Ms. Millard had never submitted any evidence regarding archaeology on her property, when the house became unsalvageable and became really dangerous, she applied for a historic area work permit to have the house removed, which was granted, and the house was then torn down. She then moved forward with applying to have the historic district removed. As Mr. Sperling said, she went before the Historic District Commission, and originally the Historic District Commissioners determined that the historic district should be retained because there was no evidence to counter the finding that there may be some archaeological potential on the site. So then, when I was retained, we determined that it would be appropriate to hire an archaeologist, actually go out there, do an investigation, something that hadn't been done before, and then before we return to the county commissioners and the planning commissioners, actually go back before the Historic District Commission, have a conversation with them, and describe our findings. And we did that, and they agreed in a vote 6-0 that the historic district, that there really was no evidence supporting retaining the district anymore, and so they voted to recommend removal. We've reviewed the draft ordinance, and we agree ultimately with the conclusion of the ordinance, but we did provide a few amendments in there to you, which I believe that you have. And we think that the current ordinance makes no mention of archaeology, and we think that it would be appropriate to explain, to add additional context about archaeology, because those were the grounds on which the historic district was established. If County Attorney Norris will give me a couple more seconds, can kind of walk you through these findings. I think they're appropriate. It'll protect, with the additional context, it'll protect the Millards and also protect the county, I think, because it provides additional details here, so that way we know that these are special circumstances and put anyone else on notice who wants to remove a historic district that this should not be used as precedent. If you have these findings in here, in the first whereas clause, it looks like there may be a typo. It says, as amended, empowers the of Calvert County. It may be, we either delete the of or add empowers the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County. The fifth whereas clause, we think instead of the word petition, believe the appropriate word is application. The seventh whereas clause talks about what happened at the reconsideration hearing before the Historic District Commission, talking about the new substantive information that was presented to them, and that's language taken straight out of the Historic District Commission's Rules of Procedure. The second finding under the now therefore be ordained, there were a couple typos there that we pointed out, and then in finding number 6, it as the additional finding of what occurred at the reconsideration hearing. And then the second, be it further ordained paragraph, it specifically addresses the findings regarding archaeology that they no longer apply. And so we respectfully ask that you include these suggested amendments in any motion. Thank you very much. Our archaeologist, Dr. Gibb, is here to answer any questions. I'm here to answer any questions, and so is the Millard family. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask a witness question? If I recall correctly over the time span, and we've been discussing this for a while, one of the other historical aspects of this property is that the Millard family has owned this property and someone has lived on it, most of those, for how many years?
since the late 1800s.
Since the late 1800s.
But
So the another historical part of it, the archaeology is taken care of, thank you very much. Another historical part is the family residence and family control of that property.
What?
Is my understanding correct that the reason you're here is to continue to live there, to build a home and to live in Lusby? Thank you, ma'am.
Well,
Love to have you as a neighbor.
The purpose, going back, you look at the purpose of the whole historic district program is really to preserve architecture. And I mean, you have all these, there's a lot of properties in this county that have been within families for many, many years.
My point being, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be argumentative with you. My point being is that we can retain the key part of the history is the Millard family. It's not that land. And by removing this designation, I think it might help us retain that aspect. Thank you, sir.
I think that's true.
Mr. Sperling?
Sir.
It's my understanding at some meetings in the past, as we've discussed different historical district designations, that one of the benefits of having that is to receive tax credits or tax incentives for remodeling or bringing repair to the property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Has this property received, during its historic district designation, received any of those tax benefits or any benefits associated with that from taxpayer dollars?
No, sir.
Thank you.
We have some speakers in the room. First, Dr. James Gibb.
We're all here to just answer questions. That's our, we're all together.
Also available for questions are the Millard family, Ms. Millard, and I'm sorry, I can't read the name.
Damon Millard.
Damon, thank you. Are all present to take any questions you have. Do we have any speakers online?
No one has raised their hand. If you are online and wish to comment during this public hearing, please use the raise your hand function. And none have.
Hearing no additional questions, we request the record be closed.
Did anybody who is signed up wish to speak? Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Sir.
move to close the record and forward to the county commissioners, the planning commission support of removal of the historic district.
I have a motion by Commissioner Freeland,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Tui. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Have any further questions?
None.
Action.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, adopt the findings of the Historic District Commission, close the record, and approve and adopt and enact an ordinance approving the application to repeal the Historic District designation upon the property located at 12531 Olivet Road in Lusby, Maryland, to be effective as set forth in the ordinance hereby adopted to text to reflect this decision.
Second.
A motion and a second that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, adopt the findings of the Historic District Commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact the ordinance approving the application to repeal the Historic District designation upon the property located at 12531 Olivet Road in Lusby, Maryland, to be effective as set forth in this ordinance hereby adopted to reflect the decision. I believe the attorney has some amendments he would like to have included in the motion.
Yeah, if the board would like to include those amendments, we have no objection. So you would
So you wanna-
approve an amended ordinance incorporating those changes.
So we're just gonna, if you would like to amend your motion to
Sure.
include the amendments into the ordinance.
Yes.
Is that okay with the seconder?
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
This is fascinating.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
This huge skills, not really accident in the history.
too.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Stacy Clay, Assistant Chief of Communications.
Good evening.
So we're here to talk about the creation of a public safety chapter in the county code and proposed text amendments to the Calvert County zoning ordinance. So we're going to review and discuss the draft updates to the Calvert County code and proposed text amendments number 23-01 to the Calvert County zoning ordinance needed to facilitate the creation of the new code. Receive and consider public comment and close the record to take action on the proposed updates to the Calvert County code and proposed text amendment. In July of 2020, the addressing function for Calvert County was moved from the Calvert County Department of Planning and Zoning to the Department of Public Safety Division of Emergency Communications. With the addressing function moving departments, Article 10 of the Calvert County zoning ordinance does not properly address the change in authority. Staff is proposing to remove the grid address numbering system and display of address number sections from the zoning ordinance and place it in a new public safety section of the Calvert County code. The proposed changes add reference to Chapter 95, Public Safety of the Calvert County Code for regulations regarding non-interference with emergency communications microwave system to the following ZO sections. Section 3-3.02, Wind Energy Systems and Communications, Tower and Antenna Regulation, General Requirements, and Article 5, Residential Development Requirements, Section 5-1.11, Height Regulations for all districts. Article 6, Non-Residential Development Requirements, Section 6-2.02, Height Regulations for Non-Residential Uses, and Article 10, Naming and Renaming of Roads and Assignment of Premise Addresses. Remove Sections 10.2.02, Grid Address Numbering System, and 10.1.03, Display of Premise Address Numbers. So we're going to move on to the microwave path protection background. In 2021, the Calvert County Department of Public Safety commissioned a 15-site P25 public safety radio system. The radio system uses radio microwaves to communicate between the 15 tower sites. This communication is necessary for the radio system to function properly. The microwave path protection, the communication path is directly through the line of sight between the microwave antennas. Any interruption of the line of sight will result in an interruption of communication between the tower sites. There is a potential for interruption should a new building be built along a microwave path. To protect the investment made by the county and to ensure reliable communication paths, the staff is recommending the creation of a public safety section of the county code that will address microwave path protection. The new code would require a review of all new construction along a microwave path. Any structures being proposed above 80 feet will require a review by the Department of Public Safety, Emergency Communications to determine if it will impact a microwave path. If the new construction is determined to have no impact, staff will issue a notice to the builder that they may proceed. If preliminary findings determine that the new construction will potentially have a detrimental impact, the builder will be required to provide an engineering study to confirm whether the structure will have a detrimental impact upon the system's microwave path or paths, and if so, the extent of that impact. And if confirmed to have an impact, the Department of Planning and Zoning and the Department of Public Safety Emergency Communications Division will work with the builder to mitigate the impact. Possible mitigation strategies include redesigning and/or relocating the structure to eliminate its detrimental impact, or negotiating with the county to design, engineer, and install any or all additional equipment or modifications necessary to eliminate the detrimental impact. These were the comments received by the agency. Calvert County Parks and Recreation wanted to indicate emergency communications chief or designee in case the incumbent is out for an extended period that may not meet the 10-day period. Also, the official title for that position is just communications chief, which could be updated in definitions. Any discussion or questions? There's no speakers.
And if anyone online would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. No one has.
No one has. Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I'd like to say thank you to the entire staff for working on all the questions that we had originally when it came up a few months ago. There was a lot of clarification needed, a lot of answers were given, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I will pass that
Hearing nothing else, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we close the record, and we recommend to the Calvert County Commissioners to adopt a text amendment and find it consistent with master plan.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gadway, seconded by Commissioner Kernan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. You have any questions?
None?
Have none. Make a
Action?
motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, close the record, and approve, adopt, and enact the ordinance establishing a public safety chapter within the county code and the repeal and readoption with amendments of certain zoning regulations.
Second.
A motion and a second that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission, close the record, and approve and adopt and enact the ordinance establishing a public safety chapter within the Calvert County Code and the repeal and readoption with amendments of certain zoning regulations. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Commissioners. We're going to switch gears from the joint public hearing to a joint work session item for the Calvert County zoning ordinance update. This work session will be on Articles 30, 32, and 33. With me tonight is Will Hager, our Planner 3, who's been the main head guy on this project for us. I'll quickly go through an introduction. We initially started this with a work session in April of 2023, which gave an overview of the zoning ordinance, its purpose, as well as strategies and goals for this ordinance update. The draft zoning ordinance was made available to the public in May of 2023, and we followed up with another joint work session as well as our first public forum in June that reviewed the draft zoning districts as well as the draft zoning map. We had an additional public forum in August, and the topics covered then was critical area, marine and water dependent facilities, and floodplain. We followed up with work sessions with both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners in September and October. Over the last several months that we've been going through the public forums and the work sessions, planning staff has also been meeting with representatives from several organizations as well as citizens from the county. Questions and comments that we've been received have been used to create a frequently asked questions section that we've put on the zoning ordinance update webpage. You can access the link on the slide. There you will also find the draft articles, the draft zoning map, and where the public can submit comment and take a look at all the other supplemental materials. Again, so the focus this evening will be on Articles 30, which will cover zoning approvals, variances, and appeals, Article 32, nonconformities, and Article 33, enforcement. And I'm going to turn it over to Will to walk us through the articles, what they cover, and the major changes.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Rachel, and good evening, Commissioners. So, moving forward, this slide here gives a basic outline of the contents of Draft Article 30, zoning approvals, variances, and appeals. Draft Article 30, it includes application, procedure, and approval processes for development plans, administrative variances, special exceptions, and decisions on alleged errors from the Board of Appeals. Zoning map and text amendments, addresses reconsiderations and appeals of Board of Appeals decisions, addresses reconsiderations and appeals of decisions of the Planning Commission, Administrator, and Planning Commission, and addresses zoning interpretations and verifications by the zoning officer. And so there are basically three types of development plans that are essentially categorized by the intensity and scale of the development. Category 1, site development plans. Category 2, site development plans and plot plans. Category 1 site plans include things like multifamily, townhome, and single-family attached residential development with 3 units or more, institutional, governmental, commercial, mixed-use, and industrial development if cumulative square footage of any new construction is more than 7,500 square feet. The vehicular traffic within an existing development project will be altered. An automobile filling station or service station is proposed, or if the use has a drive-through service. Category 2 site plans include all other development that does not require a Category 1 site plan or only requires plot plan review. These include, but are not limited to, things like telecommunication facilities, parking lot modifications, farm buildings, and structures for commercial uses. And plot plan review is required for the least intensive kinds of development, which include things like all single-family homes and duplexes, residential accessory uses, home occupations, minor commercial remodeling without additions, minor commercial accessory uses, and farm building and structures not for commercial uses. And so, as I imagine the commissioners here tonight understand, the Planning Commission reviews and approves or denies site plans. However, the Planning Commission may delegate approval authority to the Planning Commission administrator for Category 1 site development plans without concept plans approved by the, with concept plans approved by the Planning Commission, and Category 2 site plans, both concept and detailed site development plans. And so moving on to variances, the purpose of a variance is to afford relief from the strict application of the requirements of the zoning ordinance only when unwarranted hardship or practical difficulty exist. A variance may only be granted if peculiar and unusual practical difficulties or unwarranted hardships exist on the parcel, and such difficulties and hardships are created by exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or the shape of the parcel, by reason of exceptional topographical conditions, or by other extraordinary situations or conditions affecting the property. And an unwarranted hardship in this case means that without a variance, an applicant would be denied reasonable and significant use of the entire parcel or lot which the variance is requested. Variances are permitted through a Board of Appeals hearing and approval process. However, the zoning officer has the authority to review and approve administrative variances for specific types of variance requests, including from sign height, setback, and parking requirements. However, comments are received from any affected property owners in objection to the administrative variance. The variance request must be taken to the Board of Appeals. And there are some limitations on the degree to which relief from regulations can be sought through an administrative variance request. For instance, setbacks may not be reduced by more than 50%, and in no case may a required setback be reduced by less than 5 feet. And minimum parking space requirements for non-residential uses may be reduced by no more than 15%. And all variances, and for all variances, there are specific variance criteria that must be met in order for a variance to be granted, and it's the responsibility of the applicant or property owner to establish that that criteria has been met. And so special exceptions. A special exception is the granting of a specific use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction. An approval of a special exception is based upon finding that certain conditions as detailed in the ordinance are met, and that the use conforms with the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the existing neighborhood. So a special exception is another layer of review that gives members of the community an opportunity to provide feedback and to ensure the proposed use is in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood. And sometimes after feedback from the community has been heard, the Board of Appeals will add conditions specific to the proposed development to ensure that that harmony does exist. But in terms of proposed changes, no substantive changes have been proposed for this section of the zoning ordinance. In regard to zoning map amendments, the following provision was added to the draft zoning ordinance. Any map amendments which result in an expansion of the rural commercial district shall not be permitted, and that was added to address the comprehensive plan action item to restrict the expansion of rural commercial uses and maintain a small-scale rural character. And section 30-15 of this article was added to make clear that the zoning officer has the authority to rescind approval of any permit if any conditions of approval are not met or if incorrect information was given by the applicant during the application process. And so moving forward to Article 32, nonconformities. Any use, structure, site element, or sign that legally existed prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance or any subsequent amendments may continue subject to the provisions of Article 32 so long as it remains otherwise legal. Article 32 establishes policies in regard to expansion, change of use, discontinuation and abandonment, damage and destruction, and structural alterations of nonconforming uses and structures. In terms of the proposed revisions to this article in regard to nonconforming uses, the current policy is that a nonconforming use may, with the approval of the Board of Appeals, be changed to another nonconforming use which the Board of Appeals finds to be of the same or more appropriate use or classification. In the draft zoning ordinance, this policy is proposed to be changed so that a nonconforming use can only be changed to a use allowed within the zoning district where it's located. So if the use is not permitted on the use table for that district, the change of the use cannot be approved. And under the current policy is that a nonconforming use which has been discontinued or abandoned for 9 consecutive months or for 18 months during a 3-year period cannot again be used for a nonconforming use, except that nonconforming seasonal uses shall be permitted to continue unless discontinued or abandoned for a period of 24 consecutive months. In the draft zoning ordinance, this has been revised so that if a nonconforming use or seasonal nonconforming use is discontinued or abandoned for 12 consecutive months, the nonconforming use is terminated. This time period may be extended by the zoning officer for an additional 6 months upon written request of the property owner. Section 32-3C was added to this draft article. This section establishes that structural alterations to nonconforming structures are permitted only when the alteration is required by law or is necessary to restore the structure to a safe condition upon the order of any official charged with protecting public safety, when the alteration will eliminate the nonconformity, or when the alteration will not create any new nonconformity or increase the degree of any existing nonconformity. Section 32-4 was added to the draft article. This section establishes that all nonconforming site elements must be brought into conformance when a new principal building is constructed on a site or an existing principal building increases its footprint. When a parking lot does not conform to required parking lot landscape requirements, it must be brought into conformance when the parking lot is fully reconstructed or expanded. However, if this would result in the creation of a parking area that no longer conforms with the minimum parking requirements of the ordinance, existing parking lots are not required to install all or a portion of the required landscape. And when exterior lighting is replaced, all exterior lighting on the site must be brought into conformance with the current regulations. And lastly, Article 33, enforcement. This article defines zoning violation. It addresses policies and processes for citations, fines, referrals to district court, repeat violations, and impacts other permit applications on the same property. And revisions were made to this article mainly to clarify existing policies, streamline processes, and to reduce redundancies. And Section 1-701J, time limits for enforcement actions from the current zoning ordinance, was not included in the draft following legal review. So in summary, Article 30, revisions to the types of variance requests for parking and sign height that can be permitted through an administrative variance process. Variances from lot area requirements that result in an increase of density shall not be granted. Article 32, revised so a nonconforming use can only be changed to a use allowed within the zoning district. Revised and simplified the policy for when a nonconforming use is considered abandoned. And revised to address nonconforming site elements such as parking, landscape, and lighting. And Article 33, revisions done to clarify existing policies, streamline processes, and to reduce redundancies. And I believe at this time, staff requests that the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners discuss draft Articles 30, 32, and 33, and direct staff regarding any recommendations, any recommended considerations or options to include in the draft for public input.
So, Will, I do have a couple questions. You have a provision in there to ask for a reduction in parking. Is that for residential, commercial? Or?
It's a non-residential, and yeah, it's the regulation is that through an administrative variance, the zoning officer has the authority to reduce the amount of required parking spaces by up to 15% for non-residential.
Can you cite a circumstance where that could be applicable?
Do you want to handle that one?
A lot of times there's situations where if the applicant can make an argument where the parking is not needed due to shared parking that from other neighboring businesses, because they'll be utilizing more than one business at a time, then they have a chance to make a justification for the reduction. A lot of times applicants will submit the request because they can't fit that minimum requirement. And, you know, we'll take a look, and if we feel like the need is still met, you know, we can consider it.
So not having enough room is a reasonable request to reduce parking?
It depends. We take a look at the surrounding area and the additional parking that surrounds that applicant, and we take that into consideration when the request is made.
But that's only for commercial,
Yes, sir.
not for residential. Can you go back to slide 12 for me, Will, please? Background music. So, the first bullet point, the following provision was added that no expansion of the RC district shall be permitted. Hasn't that been occurring? Because haven't we had requests from people that were in the farm and forest that got moved into RC that they wanted to remain in?
I think you might be confusing the RC with the RCD. So I understand that. I understand your confusion there.
Too many RCs.
So yeah, so the RC, that is, the RC district is the rural commercial district. The rural community district, which I believe is what you're referring to, that's the RCD.
You change that acronym.
Yeah.
Jeez. There's 26, isn't there 26 letters in the alphabet? We can't come up with. Isn't there 26? Check my math. English. So it would be helpful. I think we've, in the past, in some of our work sessions, it would be a little helpful if we had comparisons of what we're changing from and to. Because it's hard for us that don't do this every day.
Yeah,
like you all.
and we do prepare documents, comparison documents that are go into more those types of details. It's hard to fit. It's impossible to fit all of that into a presentation that people are going to sit through. So if anyone really wants to dive into what's being proposed to be changed, and we do that comparison to the current zoning ordinance in those comparison documents. You can find those on the zoning ordinance update website.
So I'll give you a list of, I don't need them all. I'll give you a list of the ones I want.
Sure, we can pull those out for you and send them to you directly.
Yeah.
The documents are grouped in the same groupings that we're doing the public forums and the work sessions. So, you know, whichever articles that you're interested in, you can go into that document, and it's not just like so it's easier for you to find what you're looking for.
I just don't want somebody 10 years from now to look back and say, what the hell were they? I'm sorry.
What do you think?
What were they thinking? So, you know, if we're making all these changes, I just want to understand, you know, why and what we're changing from and to. Some of the stuff is not as important to me as others, but.
Right, in our presentations and for these work sessions, as well as the public forums, we're trying to call out the major changes that we feel are relevant that most people are gonna care about. But as Will said, we can't put it all into a work session presentation. It would take forever and we would lose everybody. So that's why we've done these comparison documents that outlines all of the changes.
Okay.
I want to piggyback on Commissioner Hance's question on the parking. So, just so if I got it straight, let's say I had a Domino's and it's all carry out, right? So there's not that, that much parking required. And that's good, and I understand like with zoning, it has to be, you have to put the same type thing basically back in, you can't change use type thing. But now they want to sell out, the guy wants to put a pizza joint in there, but he's got seating and he requires more. But we allowed it in because we reduced it. Now what happens to that person? They're still doing pizza, but they need more seating. And there's no way somebody out there would know that. They would go ahead and start to trickle down that road thinking, hey, I'm doing the same thing they were always doing. And then all of a sudden they get to us and then we go, well, sorry, you don't have enough parking for that. That concerns me.
So, well, in our next grouping of articles, we will be going over the parking article. So
Okay.
this is goes a little bit off topic from just the administrative variance for the reduction. But when a property changes use, that always is analyzed by our department so that the new use meets all of the requirements, including parking. But so for
But
a
like with that,
takeout
it wouldn't
versus
change
seating,
use, so to speak,
it's
except it's a
under
sit
the
down.
same use as eating establishment,
No.
so it would be it would have a similar parking requirement.
Okay, because that's what worries me when, especially nowadays, there's not too much mom and pop shops out here. There's a lot of franchisee stuff. So for you to go ahead and sell it, you almost gotta go down that road and, now is that person stuck because they can't move it because they're in something with parking. So that's the only thing that, that concerns me. So.
Non-conforming uses. I think, what you're going for, but could you give me a tangible example, something we've done before? And when we have like the D1s, the D2s and all of that, and there are specific uses within there or specific criteria within there, and you have to meet that criteria, just like we looked at previously, what was allowed in Solomon's. Give me an example of a non-conforming use.
A non-conforming use is a use that has been in existence or is occurring, but no longer is permitted in that district that it's zoned.
Okay, so it's grandfathered in and now it's no longer permitted. So if another person comes in and wants to use it for the same function, if
They
it's
can.
not permitted?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Like if we ban hotels in Solomon's.
Okay.
Because apparently we have too many hotel rooms.
Can't
Just
fill 'em.
saying, just
You can't
saying.
You can't fill 'em.
Just saying.
Thank
You can't
you.
fill 'em.
Uh-huh.
Just taking the advice I was given.
And Will and Rachel, you guys live this stuff all day long, all week long, everything else. And a lot of times, it was touched on a little bit earlier, but a lot of times the devil's in the details. And we struggle sometimes to understand a lot of what you're going over. So I appreciate the extra effort you guys do to help define the details, because to quote somebody else in a different level of government from many years ago, I'd hate to get to the point of somebody saying, we just need to vote on this bill so we can understand what's actually in it. We don't want to get to that point. So I appreciate the extra effort and entertaining the questions and the answers and everything else in order to where we can understand them, so thank you.
So Will, under non-conforming site elements, the second bullet there talks about parking lot. What's your definition of fully reconstructed? Because I can see where there's probably 6 people would have 6 different definitions of what fully reconstructed might be. Is it simply overlaid and restriped? Does it require updated stormwater management?
To be honest, I think that that's a good question.
I think it's a great question.
That's why we put him on the plan.
It sounds good. But, you know, can you quantify it for me?
Yeah, I don't know if you have any insight into that, but I think that that's a good point to bring up.
I think we should take a look at working on defining it, and I think we can talk to DPW about how, their thoughts on it.
It's probably just overlay. It's probably just overlay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll just go back to the last slide. And just a reminder for anyone in the public listening, we do have a public forum coming up tomorrow right here at the HEB. And we'll be going over draft articles 26, 27, and 28. That is outdoor lighting, parking, and landscaping. And we have and we're accepting public comments up till December 1st. And just to clarify, the reason why we have these due dates is to ensure that we get public comments in time to include them in the package that we send to the commissioners, give them a chance to read them before we do these work sessions. But we accept public comments on anything, any draft articles throughout this adoption process. And we do have that next joint work session where we'll be going over outdoor lighting, parking, and landscaping is scheduled for December 13th. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, before we adjourn, I just do want to make a couple comments. We, as you all know, we've been going through this zoning ordinance update. We've had some concerns about our process. And talked with Director Cook the other day, we're not going to do breakout sessions any longer. Breakout sessions are a valuable tool when you have large groups of people to have good discussion. But so far to date, unfortunately, we've not had large groups of people turning out for our zoning ordinance discussions. So we're going to do just regular discussions. We're not going to do breakouts any longer. And there's a few other changes that were requested that right now slip my mind that we're going to make. To, you know, we're here to serve you. So we're going to make our format conform to what you all want as best we can. So the only other comment I will make is, you know, tonight someone referenced backroom deals. There are no backroom deals with this Board of County Commissioners. Tonight what you saw was a process that's been established and been in place for a very long time. And we're going to follow that process and those rules. And the outcomes will be what they will be. But we don't make deals. That's why we're all here tonight.
Want a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I move that we adjourn the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners.
Second. Have motion second that we adjourn. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Chair?
Thank you. If I could have a motion to take a brief recess, and then we will return for our regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.